All right, and we're back in the studio and ready to welcome our next speaker, Tim Lyon, Gaming Marketing Lead EMEA at Facebook Gaming. And now Tim is going to tell us about actually a new report developed with Facebook IQ and Game Refinery. But we'll find more about it in just a second. Do we have Tim here?
Yes,
Tim?
Elena. Hi, Elena. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you again. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. I've been looking forward to this session.
Same here. Where are you based, by the way? In London?
Based in Dublin. No, Dublin. I was in London until recently, but Dublin now.
Well, close enough.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for joining. We're very excited to listen to your presentation. Over to you.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Elena. I appreciate you having me. I think before I start, I was hoping perhaps to show everybody a quick video, and then I'll come back to the presentation after you see the video.
Yep, the video is finished. You can
Great.
start now.
Thanks very much indeed. So that's a little bit of a teaser for the campaign we have coming around this report. And what I want to do today is take you through some of the elements of the report and an outline of the report. And not so much by way of pitching it, because we think we're giving this away free to the industry. I just want to take the opportunity to let everybody know why we did it and what's involved in it. So to start at the beginning, we know that mobile gaming has become a pretty much universal entertainment behavior. And although the research behind this report is pre-COVID, we know that since stay-at-home measures and the pandemic, we've seen an influx of even more players into the mobile ecosystem. But with that wider pool of players and diversity of players, we know that there's an explosion of genres that has to map to that, because not all players are the same. So we have a whole span, as you know, from immersive hardcore titles to relaxed, more hyper-casual games. So today I'm going to give you a sneak peek through the report, some of the insights that we've uncovered, with a view to helping you understand, and what the report, we hope, helps you understand how you can connect game design, game marketing to player preference. And in a minute, there we go. So as Elena mentioned, we partnered with our colleagues at Facebook IQ, who are our consumer research and insights team, and our partners at Game Refinery. We know that their expertise on game feature analysis was incredibly valuable to bringing this sort of to a holistic point. So that resulted in a report that we're calling Genre and Great Games. And it analyzes through 4 key factors the influence behind player behavior that we think, as I mentioned, anyone developing a game or bringing a game to market will find value in this research and the connection between the features that players look for in certain genres. So I mentioned 4 key pillars and 4 strategies. So 4 genres, I should say. The 4 genres that we looked at through the report is strategy, RPG, puzzle, and hyper-casual. We've analyzed that across 4 key markets. So the US, UK, South Korea, and Japan. But the real sort of depth comes from exploring these genres and these markets across these 4 categories. And the 4 categories are genre fulfillment. That's about what motivates people to play particular genres and how well those games satisfy them. Community, and what role community plays in each genre and what features can enhance social interaction. Monetization, which we know is important, particularly I think to this audience, and discovering what monetization strategy suits each genre and what features can support that strategy. And then bringing some of our expertise, particularly in the marketing and the ad solutions function, to bear some of the preferences that people have for different types of ads and ad creative. Okay, so let me go into a little bit of how that works. So for the 4 categories, genre fulfillment, community, monetization, etc., we start off with the Facebook IQ insights from research that was commissioned by our Facebook IQ team. In fact, that research was wider than these 4 markets and these 4 genres, and there's other work being done with that data back at the IQ team. But for the report, we've pulled out these elements. And so we looked at the player motivations and existing gaps between what genres deliver against those motivations. Then we worked closely with Game Refinery on their features ranking system to address the motivations and the gaps through feature analysis. And you can see, although I know it's small on the screen, you can see the different colored bars represent the different markets. And then for strategy games, this section is taken from our strategy section. You can see there are elements, basic features from strategy games and how they are preferential to players in the different markets. Some of the features include things like over 20 different permanent buildings, recurring live events, non-recurring live events, achievement systems, and so on. And that's great. And that's really valuable because they're the fundamentals for a strategy game that players look for to get fulfillment from that genre. But when we layer on this other element, this is the real sort of value, we think. And this is key features that distinguish the top 20% of games in that genre. So just to dig into that a little bit, we looked at the top 20% of performing games in that genre and what additional key features they had that differentiate them from the majority. So you can see here, for example, a battle pass plan, 49% of the top 20%, I know that gets confusing, but go with me, utilize battle pass plans versus 21% of excuse me, of strategy games that do not. So you can see, and you can dig into it. And then we've worked with some of our partners and clients who have those features to show some of those and sort of dig into them a little more deeply in the report. So it's that close integration of player motivation, or the why, and the game feature analysis, plus some recommendations from us, that gives you the sort of the how that we think brings unique value to the report. And okay, great. So Facebook are here telling us, they've got a new report. Fabulous. I can hear it. I understand. We do think it's valuable. Like I said, it's not going to be behind a paywall or anything. When it's final and ready, it will be available to everybody. But I do want to sort of go into it a little bit and try and offer you some value from it today and sort of show you some of the data that we pulled out. So why is genre important? Okay. We actually, from the research, it shows that genre is the most influential factor in why a player chooses to play a certain game by a fair distance. 49% of people across these 9 markets, identified genre as the key element that makes them choose a game. This is interesting, but a little further on in the presentation, I'm going to talk more about, this trend that sort of was the motivation for this report. You may have seen in November last year, we released our inaugural Facebook Gaming Marketing Trends report. And one of the trends we identified was genre diversification and this sort of fluidity between genres of players and the diversity of the player base now. So while genre is really important, a little later on in this presentation, I'll go into some of the fluidity that we're starting to see in the way people move between genres and how sort of not loyal, I suppose, is one way to put it, that they are to a specific genre. But genres also vary by market, right? So top genres in the 4 markets vary a bit. We can see that matching puzzle games are sort of top 1 or 2 in most markets. But then when you go a little deeper across the different markets, that changes a little bit. So there's a lot of variance. And when you start to take all of these vectors in, it becomes, a little bit complex, but we've tried to simplify that. And the report itself is very navigable. It's not designed to be read cover to cover, but you can move between genres with a navigation bar on the right, et cetera, et cetera. But you can find all of that out later. As I mentioned, I wanted to take you into a little bit of a deeper dive into one element of our 4 factors. So we're going to look at genre fulfillment for US games to a certain degree. I don't think we have enough time to go much deeper than that. So 139 million mobile gamers in the US today. But when you look at them by genre, you need to sort of realize that they're not all the same. And we know that, that's obvious, but we're trying to give you some intelligence and some insight into how different are they. So 74% of US puzzle players are female. 67% of US strategy players are male. 67% of the puzzle players are 35 plus. 67%, sorry, that's a typo there. So that should be 64% of US hyper-casual players are 18 to 34. So, you see that there are differences in in the nuance between the strategy, the players of certain genres. Playtime is also different genre by genre, right? So hyper casual players, 54% typically play a session that is less than 20 minutes. When you get up to the more hardcore end of things, RPG players typically have a play session of over an hour. So all of this speaks to how you need to address your audience differently from a design point of view, but also from a marketing and a sort of an audience understanding point of view. So I think I probably need to slow down a little bit because I'm possibly going to end before my allotted time, but I don't think that's a huge problem. What's really interesting here is that a lot of people don't identify as gamers. I think we all know this, but it's an interesting area to dig into as we get more new players in, particularly since COVID, and we get sort of late adopting mobile gamers. You see, particularly up at the casual end of the spectrum, 73% in the US of puzzle players don't consider themselves to be gamers. Obviously, at the other end of the spectrum, 66% of strategy gamers in the US do self-identify as gamers. So again, that tells us how we need to talk to people and sort of how we're going to market to them. Okay, this I've mentioned about migration and churn and fluidity. So this slide is difficult to explain, difficult to understand just because of the time frames. But, well, for me, probably all of you smart UA managers and people out there will get it a lot quicker than I do as a marketer. But let's see how we go. So in the US, the average US mobile gamer reported playing 6 different games in the last 3 months, but is only currently playing 3. But for RPG and hyper casual and strategy players generally, so again, thinking more, they report 7 games in the last 6 months while currently only playing 3. So what this suggests to us is that there is a higher than average churn in the US, and that we're seeing people being more fluid between genres, trying more things, settling on fewer. Okay, so why do people churn? Why do people stop playing? Again, looking at the US data, 44% of people reported that they stop playing a game because they get bored with it. Okay, that seems fairly obvious, but actually, when you dig into it a little more closely, we found there appears to be a disconnect between the value exchange offered by a game and the motivation behind why a player plays that genre. So while they enjoy playing mobile games to relieve stress, 67% report that. We're going to go a little deeper into the data, and we're going to see there's some gaps between that. And this refers back to the chart that I alluded to earlier. So top indexing motivations between genres. So 44% of hyper casual players are more likely to enjoy playing games to be able to express something about themselves. It's what they play is an expression of themselves versus the sort of the control or the average gamer across the board of 32%. For puzzle, you can see there's a gap there. 65% of puzzle players, they're more likely to enjoy games to pass time in between daily activities. RPG players are more likely to enjoy games that connect with people that they know. So that's a real sort of social connection piece there. And strategy players are more likely to enjoy games to feel accomplished about completing something that's challenging. So you can see that the game delivery, and sorry, I misspoke a moment ago. The bar on the left is what people have reported in the research as why they play or what their motivation to play is. And the bar on the right is what that genre typically delivers to them. So you can see there's a gap where genres are generally on a feature base under delivering against why players are playing that genre. We can go into that a little more deeply again. So 44% of hyper casual players say that being able to express something about themselves, but only 24% say hyper casual games deliver on this need. 71% of RPG players say relieving stress. Only 54% of RPG games deliver on that for them. 55% of strategy players say they feel something challenging, and 43% of strategy games are delivering on that. So we have this gap, and we think that having this information will arm studios and designers with information about that playing audience that can hopefully help you design games that can be even more successful than the ones that you already have. So we've talked about people playing more mobile games for different reasons and with more options than ever before. people are experimenting and moving between genres, and that's that genre fluidity that I mentioned a moment ago. So in Q1 of this year, we updated our data. This is Facebook data. The median monthly number of unique genres that US mobile gamers play is 2. That's a big long sentence to say that on average, most US players median, rather than average, is 2 games per player. But interestingly, only 24% of US mobile gamers say that their next game will definitely be the same genre as the games they're currently playing. So again, it comes back to fluidity. People aren't strictly loyal to a genre, and they're willing to move between genres and try things. Again, which talks to perhaps an opportunity to diversify portfolios of games from studios as well. So speaking more about the fluidity piece, during Q4 of 2019, just over 50% of action game installers launched a puzzle game within 7 days of installing an action game. And the inverse is also true, to the tune of about 55.5% of puzzle mobile game installers launched an action game within 7 days of installing a puzzle game. So, and that's quite sort of relatively opposite ends of the spectrum. So it's not like people move fluidly down one end of the spectrum from, puzzle between hyper casual and puzzle, and then RPG and strategy. What we're seeing, we think, is quite a wide fluidity. But then going back to the earlier data, and I think this is the important thing about data, is that there's a lot in here and you need to sort of draw from it some of your own conclusions. But we are seeing that while players are different and play sessions are longer for harder core and so on and so forth, that doesn't necessarily mean that the same person doesn't want to pass some time between daily activities playing a puzzle game because they don't necessarily have enough time to go deep on a strategy play session. So that fluidity, I think, is a really interesting area and something that I think can be taken advantage of. But we think one of the biggest areas of fluidity comes from social play. 41% of mobile gamers globally agree that they're open to playing different mobile game genres when I'm playing with friends and family. And I think it's important here to, again, as a touchstone back to the trends report that we released last year, where we're talking about the sort of the impact that 5G will have. I think as 5G becomes more widely available, connected play from mobile and online and community play from mobile will sort of see another step change. And I think because of that, you're going to see more genre fluidity and diversification as a result. So I hope that's given you some sort of sense of this report. We understand now that the reason people play depends on the genre, whether it's to connect with people or to feel accomplished or discover something new. But as I've mentioned, this report goes much more deeply across the 4 genres, the 4 markets, those 4 categories: monetization, ad preferences, community. And I think we know, but we certainly hope that everybody out there who cares about how games land in the marketplace and what design and what genre is going to be next for you or your studio, or how you're going to bring a game to market, can be helped and be informed by this report. So the report's out August 11. I've put the URL up on screen there. That page isn't live yet. We will launch everything. Everything will go live on August 11th. I think I just want to close by saying that certainly Facebook Gaming and our colleagues at Facebook IQ, as well as our partners at Game Refinery, are really quite proud of this report. It's been a ton of work from a lot of people. And it aligns with the goal that we have as Facebook Gaming to bring the world's gaming community together, from developers to players to creators, publishers, marketers. And we think that better matched games that are matched better to audiences, that are a better experience for the marketplace, leads to better health for the industry. And I think that's a thing that's good for all of us. So I hope that's been a little bit insightful. I hope I didn't go too quickly. I know I have a habit of speaking quickly, but with a bit of luck, that sort of covers us. And Elena, I'm sure I have time for some questions.
Yep, you do. Thank you very much, Tim, for this sneak peek. It was very interesting to hear. Quick question. So why did actually Facebook Gaming decided to do this report?
Well, I think sort of what I touched on at the end there is, we have this, my team and my function at Facebook Gaming have this very sort of enviable position that we're not selling our ad solutions. We're not sort of doing that. So my team is very much involved in trying to bring the very best that Facebook gaming has across all of our functional teams, whether it's our marketing science team, our auction experts team, our sales team, and even our creative shop team, and sort of coalesce a lot of that knowledge and bring that to the market in thought leadership pieces. So we're moving much more towards a cadence of doing sort of fewer, bigger reports, and we still run our webinars and lots of other things, but we did this because, and actually this one started, my colleague in APAC for the Greater China region, one of his team members in China, they ran a masterclass with Game Refinery on genre diversification, and it was so well received and so highly valued that we've then scaled that up to produce this report.
Okay, right. Well, thank you very much for your answer. And what drove the decision to partner with Game Refinery?
Again, I think the work that we did with Game Refinery there for that masterclass sort of triggered this thing. But again, and we're not as much as we've really gained great value and great partnership from working with Game Refinery. We work with a lot of the other industry analysis platforms as well, and we're sort of agnostic to it. But we're sort of self-aware that Facebook, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of information, but it's very Facebook specific. So we want to bring third-party expertise like Facebook, like Game Refinery's, feature ranking analysis to our data, because we think there's a sort of a gestalt of, we've got our Facebook IQ, consumer research, Facebook gaming expertise, and then the Game Refinery feature ranking. And we think that the whole is more than the sum of those parts.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. I believe you've mentioned that the report covers 4 markets, right?
Yes.
Why only 4?
Well, because this has taken nearly 4 or 5 months to put together, just with the 4 markets and the 4 genres. But actually, the research behind this, the commissioned research that our friends at Facebook IQ did, was a lot wider. I think 9 markets, and there's still even research in the field, and they cover a lot more genres. So we've got quite a lot of much deeper data that we can look into. But it's far too complex when you start to put all those different vectors into it. It's far too complex to put into a report. I think this report is already 80 pages or something like that. So we had to put a stop to it somewhere.
Yeah, right. Thanks very much for the insightful information, and thank you for joining us today. I know that there are more actually questions in the chat, so if you're free, please do join the chat by the stream window and answer them. And dear audience, if you have more questions for Tim, please feel free to message him directly via WN Hub. You can actually click on the company profile, find Tim, and send him a message, even if you have a basic pass. Thank you so much for joining us. It was very great to listen to your presentation. Hopefully see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.